The human was bleeding out. She laughed and went back to work. Kareth had seen 17 different species handle medical emergencies. 17, and not one of them, not a single one, had prepared him for this absolute circus the humans called a trauma ward. The doors hissed open, and the noise hit him like a physical wall, beeping, shouting, something that might have been laughter but surely could not be. Not here, not in a place where beings came to avoid death. His sensory stalks recoiled, then extended again, trying to make sense of the organized chaos before him. Move, move, move. A human in blood-stained blue fabric rushed past, nearly colliding with his lower thorax. No apology, no acknowledgement, just pure focused momentum toward a gurney being wheeled through the opposite entrance. Kareth checked his assignment tablet again, the translation flickering across his visual overlay. Observer position, human medical facility, border station Arcturus 7, cultural exchange program. His clutchmates back on Velcros had been so envious, a chance to study the humans up close, they had said. An opportunity, they had said. They had not mentioned the screaming. Well, not screaming exactly. More like elevated vocal communication happening simultaneously from 12 different directions. His auditory sensors were already filing complaints with his central nervous system. A human with a gash across his forehead sat on a bench, thumb moving rapidly across a communication device, completely unbothered by the blue liquid. No, red. Humans had red circulatory fluid, completely unbothered by the red liquid dripping down his face. You, the Velcrosian observer. A voice cut through his sensory overload. Kareth rotated his primary visual cluster downward. The human was small by their species standards, maybe 5.5 feet, with dark hair pulled back in what his cultural database labeled a practical configuration. Her clothing bore the insignia of medical personnel, but also, disturbingly, several dark stains that his scanner identified as definitely blood and possibly something else he did not want to know about. I am Kareth. Yes, you are my assigned liaison. He managed the human language reasonably well, though the clicking sounds always gave him trouble. Lieutenant Jenna Reeves, combat medic, and yeah, lucky you get to shadow me today. She grinned, actually grinned, which his database said was supposed to indicate pleasure but looked alarmingly like a threat display. Fair warning, it has been a weird morning, and Station Command just raised the alert level to orange, which means it is about to get weirder. Weirder than this? Kareth gestured with 3 of his upper appendages at the controlled pandemonium surrounding them. Oh honey. Jenna grabbed a medical kit from a passing cart with practiced ease. This is us on a slow day. Orange alert means something is actually happening, which means we will probably get some interesting cases in the next hour. You good with blood? Wait, what color is your blood? Never mind. Does not matter. Try not to pass out, and definitely do not touch anything glowing. We had an incident last month. She walked away before Kareth could ask what constituted an incident. He followed, because that was his assignment. His clutchmates were not here to judge him, and he had spent 6 cycles preparing for this cultural exchange. His reports back to the Velcrosian Science Council would be thorough, professional, detailed. Assuming he survived whatever Jenna Reeves considered an interesting case, the station shuddered, just slightly, just enough that every human in the ward looked up simultaneously, their threat assessment apparently excellent, despite their seeming chaos. There it is, Jenna sighed, checking her communication device. Diplomat transport just took fire from an unidentified vessel. Incoming wounded in 5 minutes. Incur. Yes, Lieutenant. Things are about to get educational. The alarm that followed was not the polite, measured warning tone Kareth had heard during the safety orientation. This was a shrieking, urgent wail that made his sensory stalks flatten against his carapace in pure instinctive terror. Hull breach. Section 7. Medical teams to Bay 3. Repeat. Medical teams to Bay 3. Jenna was already moving, her small frame suddenly all purpose and speed. She grabbed Kareth's upper appendage not gently and hauled him toward the emergency bay doors. Stay close, do not get in the way, and if someone yells clear, you hit the floor. What does clear mean in this context? You will know it when you hear it. The bay doors exploded open, not metaphorically, actually exploded, blown inward by a pressure differential that sent debris scattering across the floor. Through the smoke and sparks came figures, some walking, some being carried, and all of them covered in substances Kareth really hoped were not all vital fluids. Got a Xanthari diplomat sucking chest wound. Someone, A large human male was carrying what Kareth recognized as Ambassador Thelorix, one of the visiting dignitaries from the trade conference. The ambassador's breathing membrane was fluttering wrong, all wrong, and his secondary circulatory system was clearly compromised. Jenna did not hesitate. She ran directly toward them, medical scanner already in hand. "Get him on table 4 now. I need a pressure seal and someone find me a Zenthari respiratory specialist, because I am not about to accidentally poison him with human oxygen protocols." Kareth watched her move with a precision that contradicted everything about the chaos surrounding them. She was barking orders, her hands already assessing the ambassador's wounds, her face set in concentration. Then, the second explosion hit. Kareth's threat sensor screamed. A support beam, weakened by the initial breach, tore free from its housing. Time seemed to fragment into slow, horrible pieces. The beam swung downward, directly toward where Ambassador Thelorix lay vulnerable on the medical table. Jenna looked up, saw it, and instead of diving away like any sensible being would, she lunged forward, putting herself between the ambassador and several hundred pounds of falling metal. The impact was, Kareth's mind supplied with clinical detachment, significant. The beam caught her across the right side, tearing through her uniform and the flesh beneath. Kareth saw the moment of impact, saw the way her body absorbed the blow, saw her grunt with effort as she managed to deflect the beam just enough that it missed the ambassador entirely and crashed onto the table's support frame instead. Blood, that startling red human blood, immediately began spreading across her torso, and Jenna Reeves laughed. Not a small laugh, not a bitter laugh. A full, genuine, slightly breathless laugh that made absolutely no sense in Kareth's understanding of any known biology. "Well, that is just perfect." She pressed one hand to her side, blood seeping between her fingers. "Of course. Of freaking course. Hey, somebody get the ambassador stabilized. I am going to need a minute here." "You are injured." Kareth finally found his voice, though it came out 3 octaves higher than normal. Your circulatory fluid is leaving your body. You need immediate medical attention. You need to lie down. I need you to calm down, buddy." Jenna grabbed a roll of medical tape from her belt with her non-bloodied hand. "It is not that bad. I have had worse. Remember that incident I mentioned? Yeah, this does not even crack top 5. She was still smiling. Kareth's entire worldview was actively collapsing. Unvelcros, an injury of this magnitude would send a person into immediate shock, their body shutting down non-essential functions, their mind retreating to a protective fugue state. It was biology. It was sense. It was how survival worked. Jenna tore her uniform shirt, assessed the wound, which was absolutely still bleeding, still open, still definitely a serious medical emergency, and started wrapping the medical tape around her torso while continuing to give orders to the other medical personnel. "Get me a status on the ambassador. Tommy, I see you standing there with your mouth open. Grab the coagulant from Kit 7. Rachel, check the other wounded. Triage protocol, worst cases first. You are literally bleeding." Kareth could not stop his voice from climbing into what humans would probably call hysterical ranges. "Why are you not seeking treatment? Why are you still working? Why by all the void stars are you laughing?" Jenna glanced at him and her grin somehow got wider. Blood on her teeth now, which should have been horrifying, but she seemed to find amusing. "Because Kareth, my friend, if I do not laugh, I will have to acknowledge that this really hurts, and I do not have time for that right now. We have got 12 wounded, a hull breach, and a diplomatic incident. So yeah, I am going to laugh, tape myself together and deal with this later. That is insane. Welcome to humanity." Kareth's training had covered first contact protocols, cultural sensitivity measures, and appropriate responses to interspecies medical emergencies.
Nowhere, absolutely nowhere had it covered what to do when your human liaison refused to stop working despite having a hole in her torso.
"Lieutenant Reeves, I must insist, you require immediate medical intervention." He reached for her arm, intending to guide her, gently but firmly, toward one of the empty medical beds. Jenna sidestepped him without even looking, her attention fixed on a readout displaying Ambassador Thelorix's vital signs. "Nice try, but I have got patients who are worse off than me. The ambassador's breathing membrane is stabilizing." "Good. Okay. Someone get Dr. Venn down here. She knows Zenthari physiology better than anyone." "You are also a patient." Kareth's sensory stalks were vibrating with distress. "This is not logical. This is not proper medical protocol. Proper medical protocol is making sure people do not die." Jenna grabbed a scanner, winced slightly. then immediately covered the wince with another one of those alarming grins. And hey, I am still conscious, still mobile, so I am pretty low on the priority list right now. A gurney crashed through the bay doors, pushed by two humans who looked barely better than the person they were transporting. The injured man, his leg bent at an angle that made Kurith's own locomotor appendages ache in sympathy, was somehow also not screaming. Tommy Chen, construction crew, got caught in the secondary blast. One of the transporters rattled off information while Jenna was already moving toward them. Hey Tommy, heard you wanted some attention today. Jenna's voice shifted, became somehow lighter despite the blood still visibly seeping through her makeshift bandage. Let me guess, you were showing off again? Tommy, his face pale and sweating but his eyes remarkably clear, actually managed a weak laugh. You know me, Jenna. Always gotta be the center of attention. How bad is it? Am I going to lose the leg? Not today, my friend. Jenna was scanning the injury, her movements efficient despite what had to be significant pain. Compound fracture, some tissue damage, but everything important is still attached and functional. You are going to be dancing at the next station social, I promise. Dancing? I could not dance before the explosion.
Well then, this is your excuse to learn.
Kurith watched this exchange with mounting horror. They were joking. Both of them were injured. Both of them were in obvious physical distress. And they were engaging in verbal play behavior typically associated with social bonding during leisure time, not medical emergencies. This is madness, he whispered to himself. First time around humans. The voice came from behind him. Kurith turned to find one of his own species, medical technician Vrixol, holding what appeared to be a Zen-3 respiratory support device. I have been stationed here for 2 cycles. You get used to it. Sort of. Actually, no, you do not get used to it, you just stop being surprised. They are injured and making jokes. I know. Last month a human came in with a broken arm and spent the entire treatment process explaining the plot of something called an action movie. While we were setting the bone, he said it helped distract him. Vrixel's sensory stalks drooped in a gesture of bewildered acceptance. Humans are weird about pain. Across the bay, Jenna had moved on to another patient, a woman in a pilot's uniform who had burns across her left arm and was somehow also smiling. Rachel Okonkwo. You better not have crashed another shuttle. Jenna was already applying burn gel with one hand while the other stayed pressed against her own injury. It was not a crash. It was an unscheduled rapid descent. Rachel's voice was strained but maintained that same bizarre levity. And hey, you are one to talk, you have got a hole in you. This is nothing. Remember when Collins got impaled by that cargo hook last year and walked himself to medical? Oh stars, yes. He kept apologizing for bleeding on the floor. They both laughed. Actually laughed. Kurith felt his cognitive processes grinding to a halt. Lieutenant Reeves. He tried again, moving to physically block her path. You must stop. Your wound is still bleeding. Your body requires rest and proper treatment. Jenna looked at him, really looked at him, and for just a moment the mask slipped. He saw the pain there, saw the exhaustion, saw the very real awareness that she was hurt. Then she blinked, and the grin was back. Kurith buddy, I appreciate the concern. I really do. But here is the thing. She gestured around the bay at the dozen injured beings in various states of distress. Every single person here needs help. Some of them need it more than me, and if I stop to take care of myself first, someone else might not make it. So yeah, I am bleeding. And yeah, it hurts like you would not believe, but I have got drugs in my system, tape holding things together, and enough adrenaline to run a marathon. I will get treated when everyone else is stable. But what if you collapse? Then someone will catch me. She patted his upper appendage, leaving a small blood stain. That is kind of how this works. We take care of each other, even when we are falling apart ourselves. Especially then. She moved past him, calling out orders about coagulants and pressure bandages, and Kurith stood there in the middle of controlled chaos, trying to reconcile everything he knew about biology and survival with the reality of humans who laughed at their own mortality. His report was going to require so many footnotes. Enough was enough. Kurith had watched Jenna treat 7 more patients in the last 20 minutes. 7. Her improvised bandage was now completely separated. Her movements were getting slower, and twice he had seen her grip the edge of a table for support when she thought no one was looking. This was not bravery. This was self-destruction. With a smile, he made his decision. Medical technician Vrixol kept sedatives in the supply cabinet, clearly labeled for human use in cases of extreme agitation. Technically, Jenna was agitated, if you counted refusing medical treatment while actively bleeding as a form of agitation, which Kurith absolutely did. He palmed the injector, the human-safe dosage already loaded, and approached her while she was bent over another patient explaining something about suture techniques. Lieutenant Reeves, I apologize in advance for this. He lunged forward with the injector. Jenna moved. Kurith had not thought humans could move that fast, especially not injured ones, but she twisted sideways and his injector hit nothing but air. Her hand came up, caught his wrist, not hard but firm, and suddenly he was looking directly into her eyes. Kurith, did you just try to sedate me? Her voice was calm, too calm, the kind of calm that predators used before they struck. You are going to collapse. Your body cannot sustain this level of activity with that injury. I am trying to help you. By drugging me without consent? Yeah, that is not how we do things. She released his wrist, then winced as the movement pulled at her wound. Look, I get it. You are scared. You are watching me do something that makes zero sense to your species. But Kurith, I need you to trust me when I say I know my own limits. You are clearly beyond your limits. Nope, not even close. She turned back to her patient, dismissing him entirely. Kurith wanted to scream. Instead, he pulled out his data tablet and began frantically searching through the human psychology files he had been provided during orientation. There had to be something. Some explanation for this bizarre behavior that defied every principle of self-preservation he had ever learned. The files loaded slowly, maddeningly slowly, while Jenna continued her impossible work across the bay. Then he found it. A section labeled Stress Response and Coping Mechanisms. Subsection Humor Under Duress. Humans frequently employ humor as a psychological defense mechanism during traumatic events, he read aloud, his translator struggling with some of the technical terms. This behavior, while appearing inappropriate to outside observers, serves multiple functions including anxiety reduction, social cohesion maintenance, and emotional distance from immediate physical or psychological threats. Vrixel appeared beside him, reading over his shoulder appendage. Oh, that file. Yes, it explains some things but not nearly enough. Kurith kept reading, his eyes widening with each paragraph. It says here that human military and medical personnel are especially prone to this behavior, that they use humor to maintain operational effectiveness despite personal distress. He looked up at Jenna, who was now joking with Rachel Okonkwo again while wrapping the pilot's burned arm. So you are telling me you flew through a debris field, took fire from an unknown hostile, and still managed to dock? Jenna was saying, her tone almost admiring. Please, I have threaded needles tighter than that debris field. Rachel grinned, then hissed as Jenna applied more burn gel. Okay, that stings. Yeah, well, burns are not fun. But hey, at least you kept your eyebrows this time. That was one incident. One time I singe off my eyebrows and nobody lets me forget it. Because you looked like a surprised egg for 3 weeks. They both dissolved into laughter, and Kurith felt something shift in his understanding. This was not madness. This was not humans being stupid or reckless. This was survival, just not survival as he understood it. His species survived by retreating, by shutting down, by conserving energy until the threat passed. Humans survived by pushing through, by connecting with each other, by refusing to acknowledge that the threat could stop them. The laughter is a weapon, he said slowly, the realization crystallizing. They are using it as a weapon against their own fear. Got it in one. The voice came from behind him. Kurith turned to find a human male in a medical coat, older than Jenna, with gray in his hair and tired eyes. Dr. Felix Hartman, station psychiatrist. I have been watching you watch them. They are going to kill themselves with this behavior. Maybe, but probably not. Felix moved to stand beside Kurith, both of them observing the organized chaos of the medical bay. Here is what you need to understand about humans like Jenna and Rachel. They are not ignoring their pain. They are very aware of it, but they have made a conscious choice that other people's survival matters more than their own comfort. The jokes, the laughter, that is how they cope with that choice. It is how they stay functional when every instinct should be telling them to curl up and wait for help. But it is illogical. Is it? Felix tilted his head. You have been here for almost an hour now. How many people have been stabilized because Jenna kept working? Kurith checked his mental count. 11, including Ambassador Thelrix. 11 people who are alive because she decided her pain was less important than their lives. You call that illogical. I call that the most human thing possible. Felix paused. Also, she is absolutely going to collapse in about 10 minutes. And when she does, 3 people are already positioned to catch her and get her into treatment. We are not actually crazy, Crip. We just have a different calculation for acceptable risk. Across the bay, Jenna finished with Rachel and immediately moved toward another patient. Her steps were definitely unsteady now, her face pale beneath the blood and sweat. Kareth clutched his data tablet tighter. I do not understand your species. Yeah, Felix said, not unkindly. We get that a lot. Jenna made it to patient number 14 before her legs gave out. True to Felix's prediction, 2 medical technicians were there instantly, catching her before she hit the floor. She did not fight them this time, just let out a long breath and said, okay, yeah, maybe I do need that medical attention now. Kareth rushed forward, his earlier frustration transformed into something uncomfortably close to panic. Is she? Will she? She will be fine. One of the technicians, a broad-shouldered human named Stevens, was already lifting Jenna onto a gurney. Stubborn as hell, but fine. Always is. They wheeled her away, and Kareth stood in the middle of the now quieting medical bay, surrounded by stabilized patients and exhausted staff. The crisis had passed. The hull breach was sealed. The unknown attackers had fled, and somehow, impossibly, everyone had survived. Felix Hartman appeared at his side again, holding 2 containers of what Kareth's scanner identified as a caffeinated beverage. Coffee? Oh wait, can your species process caffeine? Yes, we can, though it affects our neural chemistry differently. Kareth accepted the container, grateful for something to do with his appendages. Dr. Hartman, I need to understand, what I witnessed today, is this normal for humans?
Normal? No.
Common among certain professions? Absolutely. Felix sipped his own coffee, his eyes distant. Humans have this thing, Kareth. We bond through shared trauma. We laugh at death because if we did not, we would be too terrified to function. People like Jenna, like Rachel, like half the crew on this station, they have learned that sometimes survival means ignoring every signal your body is sending you and just pushing through until the job is done. But the cost is high. Yes. Jenna will need surgery, probably 2 weeks of recovery, and mandatory counseling sessions that she will absolutely try to skip. Felix smiled, but it was sad around the edges. But she will heal. They always do. And then they will go right back to doing the same thing the next time there is an emergency, because that is who they are. Kareth thought about his homeworld, about the careful, calculated way his people approach danger, about the sensible retreat protocols, the logical risk assessments, about how they would never, ever laugh while bleeding. We would not survive as humans, he said quietly. And we would probably not survive as Velcrosians. Felix clapped him on the shoulder. A gesture Kurt's database said was meant to be comforting. Different species, different strategies, both valid, both successful, just, wildly incompatible worldviews. 3 hours later, Kareth sat in his assigned quarters recording his report for the Science Council. His primary manipulators moved across the data interface, trying to translate the day's events into coherent observations. Cultural Exchange Report, Day 1. Subject, human medical personnel, specifically combat medics assigned to emergency response. Initial assessment, humans possess either a fundamental disconnection between pain receptors and behavioral responses, or a psychological framework so alien to Velcrosian understanding that further study is required. He paused, replayed his recordings of Jenna laughing while bleeding, of Rachel joking while burned, of Tommy making puns with a shattered leg. Revised assessment, humans utilize humor as an active coping mechanism during trauma, allowing them to maintain operational capacity despite significant injury. This behavior, while appearing counterproductive, may actually enhance survival rates by preventing psychological shutdown and maintaining group cohesion during crisis events. Further observation recommended. Also, I may need psychological support upon return to Velcros, as I am now questioning several fundamental assumptions about the nature of intelligent responses to danger. A chime at his door interrupted his recording. Kareth opened it to find Jenna, now wearing clean clothes and sporting a line of neat stitches along her right side visible where her shirt had ridden up slightly. Hey, came to check on my observer buddy. She held up a container of the human dessert his database called ice cream. Peace offering for scaring you today. You were nearly killed. Yeah, but I was not, so it all worked out. She invited herself in, settling onto his furniture in that casually comfortable way humans had. Felix said you were pretty freaked out, wanted to make sure you were okay. I am not the one who was injured. True, but trauma is not just physical, Kareth. Her tone was gentler now, more serious. You watched something today that violated your entire understanding of how living things should behave. That is its own kind of wound. So, are you okay? Kareth's sensory stalks drooped. I do not know. Ask me again in several cycles. Fair. Jenna took a bite of her ice cream. For what it is worth, you did good today. Stayed calm. Tried to help even when nothing made sense. That counts for something. I tried to sedate you without permission. Yeah, that was not your best moment, but your heart was in the right place. Or whatever you have instead of a heart. We good? Despite everything, Kareth found himself approximating the human gesture of a smile. We are good.
Excellent.
Now, want to hear about the time Collins got impaled by a cargo hook? Because that story is legendary. Kareth spent the next week observing, documenting, and slowly, very slowly, beginning to understand. He watched Jenna return to duty after only 5 days, against medical advice naturally. He watched Rachel organize a commemorative gathering for the crew, which turned into a party where everyone joked about their injuries like they were discussing mildly interesting weather patterns. He watched Tommy Chen, still in a mobility cast, challenge someone to a hoverchair race through the station corridors. His nightly reports back to the Science Council became increasingly detailed and increasingly concerned. Supplemental observation. Day 7. Humans engage in what they call recreational dangerous behavior during their leisure time. This includes but is not limited to simulated combat sports, rapid descent from heights with minimal safety equipment, intentional oxygen deprivation at high altitudes, and something called parkour, which appears to be the art of falling with style. When questioned about these activities, the standard human response is, and I quote, "Because it is fun." He paused his recording. Manipulators hovering over the interface. How did he explain this to a species that considered a brisk walk to be unnecessarily risky? Philosophical assessment. Humans do not simply laugh at death. They taunt it. They challenge it. They treat survival as a game where the prize is the ability to tell stories about how close they came to not surviving. This should be maladaptive behavior. By all logical analysis, this approach should have driven the species to extinction millennia ago. Instead, they have thrived, expanded, and now occupy 17 star systems with plans for more. Conclusion. Perhaps we Velcrosians have misunderstood the nature of survival itself. We survive by avoiding danger. Humans survive by running directly at it, laughing the entire way, and then asking if they can do it again, but faster this time. Both strategies have produced successful spacefaring civilizations. I am forced to conclude that the universe has a sense of humor, and humans are the punchline that somehow became a functioning society. Final recommendation. Any Velcrosian assigned to work with humans should receive extensive psychological preparation. Also, invest in quality sedatives. You will want them. Trust me on this. He was finalizing his report when Jenna appeared at his door again, this time with Rachel and Tommy, who was indeed using a hover chair. Kareth, buddy, we are having extreme sports night in the recreation bay. Jenna's enthusiasm was, as always, both infectious and terrifying. Thought you might want to join. We have got zero-gravity acrobatics, velocity competitions, and Tommy is going to attempt the obstacle course in his chair because apparently he has a death wish. I prefer to call it an optimistic life outlook, Tommy interjected cheerfully. Kareth looked at them, these impossible, laughing, death-defying creatures who had somehow decided he was their friend. He thought about his nice, safe, logical homeworld. He thought about his comfortable research position waiting for him back on Velcros. Then he thought about Jenna pulling him through that medical bay, about the way humans found joy even in crisis, about how they turned survival into an art form and danger into entertainment. Will there be safety equipment, he asked, already knowing the answer. Define safety, Rachel said with a grin. I am going to regret this. Probably, Jenna agreed, but you will have a great story to tell afterward. And honestly, is that not what life is about? Kareth saved his report, stood up, and followed the humans toward what would undoubtedly be a series of poor decisions and questionable choices. His clutchmates were going to be so jealous. Behind him, his data tablet chimed with an incoming message from the Science Council. He ignored it. Whatever regulations they wanted to cite, whatever safety protocols they wanted to remind him about, whatever logical arguments they had prepared, none of it mattered right now. He had learned the most important lesson about humans. Sometimes, just sometimes, the illogical choice was the right one, especially if it came with a good story. And maybe, just maybe, a little bit of laughter in the face of the void.